Hello and welcome to episode 10 of GFD North podcast. My name is Ryan Woodhouse and today I'll be interviewing Raymond Tan.
Right, what's up? Hello.
Hey Raymond. So Raymond will be giving a presentation on the Sunday, the 7th of August this year. Just head on over to gfdnorth.uk, scroll down and you get a link to Raymond's work, and you can also check out Raymond's mentorship program. If you're interested in catching our episodes with our previous guests, you can go to the podcast section to listen to those. And if you're interested in just attending the event this year, on the 6th or the 7th, you can go to the tickets page to buy tickets. Now, just to give a quick intro to Raymond and his background, Raymond is originally from the Philippines and has over 10 years of experience in industry. He began his career as a 2D game and UI artist working in Italy at Sinistro Games in 2010. But since then, he's worked all over the planet. He's worked for Ingenious Entertainment, Newbie PTE Limited in Singapore, as a freelancer in London working on various concept art and illustration projects, in Malaysia as a concept artist for Streamline Studios, as a lead concept artist at Virtuous, and most recently as senior concept artist at Ubisoft. Raymond has also released his short comic Afterlife through Modern Magic Stories. He's currently working on the Runts. On top of this, he also runs his own art mentorship program. During this podcast, we'll go into Raymond's early days starting out, talk about his advice to people looking to break in, his comic, and much, much more. So without further ado, can I please welcome Raymond to the podcast. Raymond, how are you doing?
Right, I'm doing good, man. Man, thanks for arranging this, Ryan. I'm very grateful for this chance to talk to you.
It's great to have you on. I'm really looking forward to hearing you talk about all your years of experience. So, that okay? Can you see your website?
Yes, I can see it now. Nice.
Great
right,
stuff.
We're here. Okay.
So I was just hoping that maybe you could just talk a little bit about your early days, just starting out. So maybe you could start what it was like just growing up in the Philippines and your training, your early training.
Sure. Right. So everyone, my name is Raymond Tan. Currently, I am the creative director for Modern Magic Stories. We are working on the Runts, and also I run my mentorship program. I'm also part of the mentorship program in Singapore, Mages, and also doing freelance for Ubisoft. So I was born in the Philippines, grew up there. I don't have any formal training. In fact, I graduated the hotel and restaurant management. As you can see right now, that career didn't pan out, so maybe I'm not good enough for that. Okay. So as a kid, I really love to draw. I have that keen interest, and then I kind of move on to different fields, like say, I think all of us, comic books, and animation. Specifically Japanese animation. I think it has a distinctive appeal. Akira, Ghost in the Shell, all those things, and then PlayStation come along, and those were my influences. And I think once you kind of those things coincide, this commonality wherein you would want to somehow do art. When you see Street Fighter and they have the art background right there, so you're thinking that how to get to that avenue. So that's where my interest came in, and then switched to sport when I was in high school and college, and then right back to right now and doing art full time. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And at what point then did you move from the Philippines over to Singapore?
Right. So I think it was around 2011. So what happened was I attended the Singapore Comic Convention. I think it's Singapore Toy and Comic Convention. So I was very interested in putting forward my portfolio as a comic book artist. That was the prime focus of my life back then. I think during that time, I felt like when I visited that country, it feels good. I have friends who were working there, and I felt like, hey, I think it would be cool to work here. I love the place. And also it's quite close to Philippines, where I'm staying. And then after I came back from the Singapore Comic Convention, I just submitted my portfolio because I have like prior experience, like what you've mentioned before. Like I worked in Sinistro, that's a very very small indie studio in
Yeah,
Italy,
yeah,
and also Ingenious Entertainment, a few gigs here and there, but I'm pretty sure paid very 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 low, so not even
Well,
enough to buy you a sandwich. So
oh, seriously. For that gig in Italy, I didn't ask this, but did you actually go over to Italy, or was that entirely freelance? Were you freelancing from Philippines for those companies, or did you actually move out there?
so both Ingenious and Sinistro, these are all freelance gigs. So
Freelance. Yeah.
yeah, freelance gigs, and I think that time it's deviant art.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not too well known right now. But yeah, so I moved there in Singapore, and that's my first gig working in games. I was a game artist there. It's called Newbie,
Hmm.
and it's I felt really ecstatic because when I first came into the studio, it's astounding to know that I'm working with these creatives for mobile games. It's a mobile game studio, and my former colleagues there were graduates from FZD, some of them from France, from AAA studios.
Yeah.
And I just felt good. You find this kinship of when you're working with these artists. But
Yeah.
I've improved a lot because I was asking them a lot especially about digital painting. Yeah,
Yeah.
times are different then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think just to go into that, I think it's really good as well because when you're a freelancer and you're working on your own, it's
Mm,
quite difficult to have that critical eye where, it's much easier, isn't it, in the early days to get somebody else to look at your work and be like, oh, well, this could be better or that could be better. Especially when you're starting out, I don't think you have that ability when you first start out to properly critique your own stuff and it's done. So I think that's really invaluable. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Like in the beginning, like say when you're exploring this field, as a junior, I'm pretty sure all of us have that ego, wherein we have to prove something. And then I
Yeah.
think that's one of the walls that no, I think it's what that's hindering you from what you should know. You feel like you know something, but then again, there's a lot of experience that you need to build, like
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
self art direction. You don't have the critical eye yet, especially first read forms, all those stuff. And it's nice to be along with artists who's also there to help you develop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right, especially freelancing. Communication gets a little bit murky there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so true. And some of these principles and things that we pick up, they're so abstract that
Mm,
to figure them out on your own is quite difficult. And it's so much easier just to have somebody give you that critique. And you've got to be open minded and like you say, not sometimes to let your ego down a little bit and maybe just to try those ideas on. Even if you don't agree, just say to yourself, oh, well, I'll at least try it or I'll test that idea. I think is always the best attitude maybe to take when you're trying to improve.
yeah. Also, I mention this often to my students that, or even to my juniors when I'm working in house or doing freelance. Every feedback that, like, say, the art director would give you or the lead concept artist would give you,
Yeah,
it's an encapsulated knowledge of 10 to 15 years of experience. You're
mm,
receiving that in about 15 to 20 minutes. This means that the hardships that those people have experienced, doing professional stuff, you are actually getting a head start. So I think that's crucial. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so some of these lessons as well, or mistakes even experienced professionals with many years experience will sometimes be unable to catch these mistakes. I mean, the most classic one in terms of picture making is tangents, right? So when you have
Yes.
two objects that are barely touching, it has this like visual awkwardness.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just can't be avoided. And I've seen paintings by people who are absolute, legends in industry, and they've got tons of tangents going on. Like, oh man.
Yeah, bro.
So it's mistakes that we all make.
Yeah. Like I have to be honest. When I worked on in Streamline, I
Mm,
remember there was this guy. His name is Raman. He's a very good painter. He's one of those, like, I think he's senior than me,
yeah,
and he opened this idea about tangents. Whereas I was just lucky that I'm not doing that in my art and in my portfolio. I didn't know about tangents. And when he mentioned that to me, that changed the entire thing. Like I was really mindful and really scheming and looking at my work. If there would be some tangents in it. So yeah, it's vital, man.
Yeah, there's all these little things that you pick up, like tangents. Like another one that I found quite interesting when I was first starting out was creating medium shapes or repeating shapes, because the brain likes to make patterns of the same size and shape repeated in equal spaced across the composition. So we have to deliberately break that sometimes in order to create naturalness. Sometimes you might want that, but sometimes when you're trying to create a very natural looking composition, the brain naturally creates these equal patterns, and that's another one of those things that can often catch us.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what's difficult in the beginning, I think when you're creating an environment, would be finding the harmony of shapes that you're going to put in it, especially landscapes, right? If you simplify it, if there's an imbalance of shapes that's in your painting, it will be very hard for you to pull it off, especially when you're going to light it up and convey the volume. And these are particulars that I think I think in the beginning, even though you're studying that, like say in any mentorship or any art course, if you're not ready, if your eye is not ready to see that, you might not pick up the lesson. I think you would pick up the lesson the more you do it. At least in my case.
So true. And now going back to that, I know you also mentioned before that you were a teacher at Majors in Singapore. And I know we were discussing before the podcast about things that students often miss in the portfolios. So one of the questions that I forwarded over was, like, what mistakes do you often see in student portfolios, or is there anything that students could do to just improve the quality of portfolio when they want to apply for a company like Ubisoft or Virtuous Games or any of these? Do you have any advice for those guys?
Right. Okay. So first off, we can break that down into these several answers. Okay. So first, we have to understand what would be a portfolio. Okay. This one shows the level of your skill set. Okay. The second of that, this would show the work that you'll be receiving. Okay. Like for example, if you're a guy who's putting out their stylized stuff, then of course I think you wouldn't be receiving something realistic, kind of similar to your portfolio. Dude, your portfolio is like similar to like filmic portfolio, right? Realistic. So that's completely out of the wheelhouse. Now the third there would be the value of your relevance. This means that this could also show what could they give you as a salary, because from there they would see the utmost level of your skill set. Okay, which I think is important. And lastly, your portfolio would be your cover letter, your CV or your resume, or the ticket to the industry. Okay, I'm pretty sure you know that, as because we're both working in it. Now, the mistakes that I often notice would be, of course, it's always a giveaway that there's a lot of there's like huge room to grow for students, right? Because they're still starting out, learning the ropes and all that stuff. Okay, but I think first they have to consider that learning should be difficult and slow. Okay, because some of them are really rushing. Now, if you know that they're rushing, they would need to have to understand that there's a right amount of resistance, recovery, and then they would be the adaptation. Now, I think the common stuff that I notice would be they focus on being a specialist rather than being a generalist. Okay, because like I always tell this to them, this example. Okay, I agree. Like, say, I know some students might get in their first job as a specialist. I don't say that is not that's not possible. What I'm saying is that I think you would maximize your potential of getting in if you're a generalist, because from there you would showcase your range as a concept artist entering the industry, whereas you would know how to the basics of prop design, characters. You can showcase there an overview of your understanding in anatomy, and also in environment, okay, storytelling, all these specifics. I think that's a smart way to tackle. So those are the strong indications that I always notice more often than not.
So just to go on to that, so your main advice would be, don't be, when you're starting out, don't be too much of a specialist. Have like a wide range of skill sets that show you can be a bit of everything, so you can cover props, environments, character designs, and this would give the person breaking in the strongest chance of getting in, right?
Yes. If I can, expand up to that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like say, person A would apply to Ubisoft or any game studio. Person B, okay, same similar skill set but two different portfolios. One is a specialist and one is a generalist. Okay. Now, if person A would be a generalist, and that person puts forward his portfolio, okay, I think the director would have a look at it, and maybe because he or she don't know what the studio is looking for. Maybe the studio is looking for a prop guy. Okay, maybe that's what they're looking for. But then again, if for example you put forward your portfolio and you're a student being a specialist, I think right now I think it's too early for that, because you still have to have this mileage of understanding design, which I think as we as right now we're in the industry, there's no way of getting around it that we would be specialists at some point. Okay, we would specialize at some point. Like say someone would specialize environment, someone would specialize characters, something like that. But I think in the beginning you should be able to kind of have a whole grasp, so that you can have this multiple skill sets to offer. I think the more skill sets and fresh ideas you could offer, the better. Because I think in the beginning, once like say you're a junior, you're not. I think you're not going to be given a task like say, hey, I want you to design the main character for Assassin's Creed. I think you're going to start from not from the lowest, but you're going to start something that would showcase your range. Like say, hey, I would want you to work on the multiple costumes of our main character. From there, you would be able to understand and synchronize with the art direction, which I think is crucial. Also, prop design, be able to understand functionality, and also what would be the general design language that they're looking for, which I think you would learn this one as you go along as a professional. Have you like do you have like similar thoughts in portfolio preparation, or maybe when you're reviewing portfolio, what do you see that's kind of missing?
Well, for me personally, and I know this was actually something we were chatting casually about before we started, was that students, when they're not directed on a course, will often pick up Gumroad tutorials or tutorials from wherever, right? And that's all very well and good. Okay, so you want to learn, say, a new blender technique. I think what would be really beneficial, and this is just something I've personally seen a lot of while I've been looking for people for GFD North, is if you are going to follow along to those tutorials, and I know this is quite difficult if you're getting started, but try to go in there and add your own story and add your own design. Sure, follow along to the tutorial, follow along to the advice, but I definitely recommend just putting your own twist on things. Don't just copy the designs in there one to one. I think that's something that I see so much, to the point where I can almost tell which Gumroad or which tutorial you follow. It's really important, I think, to set up those, just to set up yourself a brief from the start, and then that way you can start to build that portfolio of work that will land you those gigs that you really want. And art directors, like we're talking about, they love strong design. They need to be able to see that you can not only adapt, but you're capable of thinking on your own. And I know at the moment I've actually got your mentorship program up on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And I can clearly see that this has been, these are projects that are like really well researched. They start out from like rough thumbnails. I can even see in some of these, you go through like rounds of feedback on how to improve the design.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in terms of portfolio building, do you have any kind of thoughts about that? About how, without giving too much away, so I know you wanted to go into this in more detail. For the talk. But do you have any advice to people in terms of building their own projects?
All right. So I know there's a lot of competing opinions about this. I know that there are people saying that if you do fan art, you can get work.
Yeah.
I agree, because I have friends who did that. Okay, but my experience is otherwise. I didn't. I didn't receive any work doing fan art. Okay, so now what I would suggest is that I think this will be exciting. Okay, like say for example, if you would want to get in for like say Ubisoft. Okay, I'm mostly speaking about Ubisoft because this is like you know I've been part of the people who like scanning potential concept artists to join us. Okay, or reviewing potential concept artists to join us. So I think what's best would be 10 to 15 strong pieces. Okay, this will be including refined works, okay, or also including some sketches, but tailor it to one genre and one art direction. Meaning, like say, if this will be for Assassin's Creed, then don't do something for Assassin's Creed. Maybe find something that's a historically themed concept work, body of work that would showcase the entertainment sensibility that Assassin's Creed is offering in the market. And I think from there, you would be able to not just exhibit your complete skill set as a concept artist, but also you could showcase their design solutions, which I think is very important when you're applying for like say a concept art position, because I think sometimes it gets blurry when students they think like, hey, I just need to put this beautiful painting and that's it. But there's a lot of technical aspects that's leading to that. Like for example, um, is this one like sensible enough for like a game engine? You know, there are various sizes of rooms, something like that, or is it like say you can always see like this huge landscapes for portfolio, but could that really get into the technical capabilities of the game? So we have to also understand those things. And yeah, so I feel like again, one genre and one art direction, always tailor it to the studio that you would want to get in. Because of course, if you want to get into Ubisoft, it's pretty straightforward. If that studio is producing realistic work, then please don't put forward some stylized stuff, because I think that's not made for that. You know, yeah.
I think that's an interesting point that you made about when you see these massive environments and that being okay. Well, is it actually feasible for the game engine? And I think another thing as well to consider is, are you creating a concept to also show gameplay? So is there a path through your environment concepts that the player has to travel through and say climb up a ledge and grab a puzzle piece, or are there certain traps and things that they have to avoid in the level, and are you showing those? Are you actually thinking about the gameplay aspect in your environment concepts, or is it just a flashy keyframe just to kind of sell an overall mood? So there's also that to consider as well. So sometimes there's different needs for a piece.
Yeah, man. Like I agree. I think you're spot on. Like say, I don't know if you've noticed this, but some of the portfolios that I'm seeing when I'm reviewing would be this really tall castle. Okay, with the windows are obviously wrong in scale. Now, if you really think about that, could you really build that sensible enough in the game engine? You know, and how could the players navigate that? Well, of course they would say, hey, there's magic in it. This character could fly. Yeah, I agree, but I think it's more of providing something practical and useful for production. That's the key. So when you're doing it, just think about those things. Also, ArtStation is there. You can take a look at the concept artist that's working in the same studio that you would want to apply. Try to benchmark and observe what they're producing. Okay. Now you might think that concept art will be this pretty painting pictures and illustration, all that stuff, but sometimes you have to fix on the mundane task, like say understanding the level, painting over grayscale. How would this level look like? These things might sound boring, but our job really, if you would simply break it down, would be making the common things look extraordinary. That's our job, really. So yeah.
Yeah, so true. And as well, just to go into that part, you said some part of the job is actually quite boring, and it's true. There's in every level. There's also, I know this, people have heard this before, but there's tons and tons of prop callouts and little things that just need a call out drawing just to explain. and there's tons of that as well to do, and that's a huge part of the job.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
just to
true.
give an example, so this is some of the mentorship program work. So this is just a proper call out of what I assume is like an automatic surgery table, right?
Yes,
So something for performing keyhole surgery, right? And so there's tons of like little drawings like this to it, and this may go through like a few iterations where they explore like, okay, well that's one way we have like robotic arms, might explore different variations for the bed, different technology levels or different feelings. So you might go through like a different variation purely just on a key prop for a room, and that's just one room. There's tons and tons of that stuff to do as well.
Yeah. Also, let me just go back to that. Like say, mostly in my mentorship, I would want to focus on when prop design. I would want to focus on things that aren't weaponized because, in my opinion, I think weaponized stuff or military stuff is very easy to pull off and make it look cool. Very easy.
Yeah.
Like if you put like a weapon there, like a missile launcher, that will look good. But if I was to ask you to, hey, I would want you to work on maybe like maybe a table that's slick from advanced maybe high tech office for 2059. You're thinking, hey, how can I make this look cool, you know? But then again, this is where often what's happening this is what's happening for the real work, professional work. You're designed to do this, and also like I'm pretty sure you've experienced this as well. Like say they would give you a location that hey, we're inspired by this building. Could we put this as the main focal point of this area? How could you make that interesting? You know, so these stuff are the prime importance when you're building a portfolio. It's not really the surface level of what you're going to put out there, but also you have to understand that there are layers and layers beneath that design. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And talking about, okay, we want real world locations. I actually remember a client gig I had a few years back. It was an environment very similar to this. They wanted a realistic kind of hospital corridor, but then they wanted to have the wall and the roof kind of collapsed in. And I had to do all the research. Okay, well, what does the HVAC look like? What does the sprinkler system look like? I had to go and hit the inside because I couldn't just make it up, right? It all had to be, realistic,
functional.
Yeah, functional. So eventually, what I ended up with was this really, I mean, almost like architectural visualization, almost, to that level.
That's true.
And just for this like one corridor, but it's by doing that research that you end up learning loads. And it was actually from that one gig that I ended up getting really interested in architecture in general. And I'll get on anyway. I'll save next.
No, no.
I'm waffling off on a bit anyway, but we'll come back to that maybe another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting. I'm sure there's some key points we made during that that were really useful for people breaking in. But to go back to that idea of realistic environments and kind of putting your own twist on it and that kind of thing. I know you had a massive hand in The Division, and obviously I believe this takes place, is it Washington?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and there's a virus. Is it called the green virus or something?
I think that's the dude. I might get flagged here, but I worked on the game. I think that's the Black Friday virus that was carried on from Division 1, and this was the aftermath. But maybe you're right. But as far as I can remember, that's one of the catalysts of this event.
Yeah, I think if I got it right, it's supposed to be a green poison has been released. It's supposed to be based on like smallpox. But anyway, so the idea is that it's in the near future, Washington DC. The city has obviously just gone to ruin, and I can clearly see from these concepts as well. You must have had an absolute great time, like smashing up the city.
Yeah.
So were you mostly responsible then just for creating like the overall like look and feel of these levels, or what were you responsible for on this project?
Right. So what's nice about Ubisoft is that Ubisoft is a developer studio. Now, developer studio is again, you develop your original games. Okay. Now, what's nice there is that they would want you to have an immersive experience in creating your own concepts. Like, say, if they would assign me into a particular area, like say, hey Raymond, you'll be working on a bank. This means that I have to understand the entire architecture design of the bank, even the floor plan. I have to understand everything so that if they would expand the location, like say, hey, work on the bank basement, the bank rooftop, and the bank facade, everything will be cohesive because I have a thorough understanding of the area. But not just that, you also have to understand the lore. You have to reread a lot about the design bible of this, okay, reading comprehension, because we're not the studio head of this, Massive, Ubisoft Massive, the one in Sweden. So we are working together with them. But also you have to consider as well, you're not just going to put in there like, from what you were saying earlier about the aftermath of this virus. This is, I think, 8 months after the December virus setup of Division 1. Okay, that was after Thanksgiving. So you also have to, we were researching about how plants, the plants growth in that particular time, considering the shifting of seasons. So also from what you said, in your freelance gig before, I have to understand as well the type of destruction. Like say that one particularly, that's a building that has been blown. Okay, and I have to understand like what type of explosion would this be? This one is it like a fire? Okay, what if this one is like an LPG explosion? Okay, or a gas leak explosion? How would that look like? So these particulars are often being, I guess, I have tons of iteration because the director has like different vision of this place. So also be prepared. Once you get into the concept art job, there's tons of iterations because we're not here to paint pretty pictures. We're here to create a product that is benefiting the entire team. Okay, it's not just about you. So there we go.
Yeah. And to go into that as well, sometimes you may not agree with your art director's approach. And it's up to you as a professional. You can always make the case of, okay, I think this direction would look good and back it with points. But ultimately, you do have to actually, like you were saying before, sometimes you do have to actually just put aside your personal taste sometimes and go with what the art director wants. It's just part of being a professional. But I would always encourage you to offer an option if you think a certain solution is better and to give you a reason. I think that's always appreciated as well.
Yes, that's true. Well, of course, there could be creative differences. That always happens, right? But well, I think if you can, well, it's quite. It will grow on you. I think once you're in the industry, that if they give you a certain direction, even though you might not agree with the direction, I think your job there is to make that direction look cooler.
Exactly.
I think that's
exactly.
that's how it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
That's really interesting. And also, just to go back to what we were saying about earlier in terms of gameplay. So we're also thinking about like certain aspects of the gameplay, like were these painted into a block out? So often you'll be given a grey box of a level. Were these over the top of grey boxes then already established by the level designers, or were these just completely from scratch?
All right, so in this case, for what we're looking at right now, this was painted on top of Snowdrop. That's the rendering engine that's being used in the Division 2. Some of my Division paintings were done raw from gray box because we have to explore the space. Like this one is half done with the with Snowdrop, but I have to set the mood. Okay, the overall concept of this one will be story and mood. That's it. But there are situations wherein I have to explore the entire area, wherein I have to go back and model everything, like that one as well. So I have to model some stuff there and try to mix and match it with what they have in the engine. Because again, every concept has a different objective. It actually depends on what's it's for. So yeah. Again, so also be mindful that don't rely on just one skill set. Okay, it's okay that you know how. It's always better to know 3D, but also it's good to know digital painting too, because who knows if, like, say, your task today would be, hey, I just want you to paint on this gray box model, and I want you to do it to finish it for the day. That happens. That happened to me. So. Well, you can, of course, block it out in Blender, but I think it would take tremendous time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just to go into that point, I feel like when you're starting out, you don't. I don't know if this is because you're still learning your 2D skill set, but with time, if you are very good with your 2D skills, doing something like this where you've got to put in like loads of little props, if you know your perspective and you're good with your lighting and your levels and your curves and all that stuff, it's actually very quick to do it in 2D over just the top of a very. You can get stuff like this done rapidly if you're good with your 2D skills. Whereas it would take ages and ages to do with 3D. So obviously that's changing now. There are already like a lot of assets that you can quickly just drop into the scene. Obviously that's helped speed things up, but your 2D skills, your perspective, your lighting, your rendering, all that stuff can really come in handy when you need stuff done quick, like a quick turnaround.
Yeah. So, like say, from what you said, that right now things are changing. I'm pretty sure we do that. Like we get 3D assets online, okay, for to quicken our workflow. But then again, what if they're giving you a task to design something slick like Minority Report?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So good luck finding 3D assets there. Now I'm not saying that the 3D assets aren't effective. Okay. I'm saying that these things would be really helpful to you, but you have to take advantage of its utility given the task that's given to you. Okay. Don't be too reliant on one specific skill set.
Yeah. If you need to do a lot of iterations on like a really smooth, clean form, like some of that Minority Report, it's something like a very clean, polished form. It's actually sometimes quicker just to paint that thing by hand than it is to even sculpt. You can just very quickly just like go in there, just render a smooth form like a soft brush, and you can just quickly explore rounded forms very quickly. So that balance of how far do you want to take your 3D skills, your 2D skills? I understand it must be really hard for somebody starting now because like I say, the 3D software and stuff, Blender, it's very easy to pick up in it. So.
I think also some people get caught in keeping up with what's new, right? Rather than trying to at least be competent at one thing and then put something out there and then maybe explore the new stuff that's out there. Like I have students who's very good in VR, and I think right now it's so fun because everyone has their own workflow. Like I do 3D, I do photo bashing, I do paint, but I don't do VR. Some of my students or some of my colleagues, they do VR. Now you have your different workflow as well. Now I think it's just what's nice in our industry is that your process doesn't really matter. What matters would be the end result, right?
Yeah. To go into that, actually, even to go into that, I actually got the VR headset.
Wow.
Because I decided to invest in it because I worked on a VR gig, so I thought I'll get the VR headset. I'll probably find it useful. I'll start to incorporate into workflow. I've only used the thing a few times and it's literally sat on the shelf because for me, I know some people who do use it for architectural environments and hard surface design, but for like large scale environments, I still find it quicker. For me personally, I know there's other people out there probably going to hear this and be like, no, there's no way, but for me personally, I still find it quicker to block out architectural stuff just on in the 3D program, and I haven't really found the benefit yet with VR. But for things like you said before about you've got some friends who use it. Okay, yeah, sure. Like for prop designs, say you design a cockpit and you need to put yourself in the position of the pilot, right? Oh man, super quick and also intuitive as well because you get in the real world scale proportions straight away.
Yeah. Right? Man, like I have a friend who did this like alien world in VR. Okay, now he gave me like a shot, like a top-down shot, like a high-angle shot, sorry, of this huge establishing shot of this landscape, and he said, "Do you want a tour in this?" I was like, "What do you mean?" So he put on the VR and got in live, and it's like you're in Avatar. You're traversing this world. So I think I mean it's tools right now. It's out there, man. There's a lot, and I think you're gonna get overwhelmed. So just I think try to be competent in one, but go where your interests would lie. I think that's always nice to have, and also the notion to keep on learning. Because I think some of us have that habit wherein we get too stagnant and complacent with whatever it is that we've developed. And I often right now I'm still trying to keep up, learning new things.
So true. I mean, for me personally, it was at one point exploring things like Grasshopper, just because I wanted to learn how to make that organic architecture that's been really popular in the last decade. You know, the Zaha Hadid and Santiago Calatrava, these kind of like really organic, repeating forms that are actually really difficult to do unless you've got that procedural, parametric workflow down. And I know there's ways you can cheat that in Blender and Modo and things, but it's like, give Grasshopper a go if you really like that kind of stuff. You'll find that. But it is all about exploring and experimenting. Now, to go into that idea of exploration, your work actually has a lot of variety. So you've got like photo bashing, you mentioned before, you do 3D. And I actually think this would be a really great time just to go into your comic book. So I actually checked this out. So this is one that's released. I know you also got another one that you're working on called The Runts.
Oh, that's the one, yes.
Yeah,
The Runts, yes.
But I know Afterlife was actually already released. And so in terms of modern magic stories, I know you mentioned like quite early on, you actually were already attending comic conventions. I think you said Singapore Comic Convention, way back. So you were kind of already getting into that. So did modern magic stories come quite a few years later, or was this just something that was kind of started a long time back? Like, what was the start then of modern magic stories and Afterlife?
Yeah, well, I would say that so in the beginning, the writer of Afterlife, Don, he's our main writer also for the Runts, the project that we're currently working on. Now, we were dabbling with making comics since 2011. In fact, he was there when we were together when we visited Singapore Comic Convention. We were trying to like write our own. He's writing and I'm drawing. Okay. Now, of course, fast forward. Modern Magic Story started 2018. This was before quitting my job full time. And this was, this might sound a little bit, I guess, maybe over the top, but it's an answer to an existential question of what really matters to you and what you want to leave behind. Because I think this is not me saying that I'm tired of the industry or I don't want to do something like that. No, it's not like that.
Getting tired.
No, it's not like that. I feel like it's more of I've been working in the industry for 10 years. Now I felt like that's why I started the mentorship, because I feel like if I empty it out, share what I know, and perhaps I could help out some upcoming concept artists, and also I can learn as well from them. And so Modern Magic started 2018, and Don discussed the idea of the Runts. Paul, he's our letterer and graphic artist. He's also doing some 3D stuff to help me work on the environments. So we started that one, and we're thinking to produce a comic book, and then it snowballed into creating a small startup company. We're right now working on the short film for the Runts, and so going around different conventions to promote it. In fact, we were we were at it again in Singapore Convention 2018. So we were there. We have a booth. And right now we're speaking with different people that could move this around for transmedia. But that's just the one that I can talk for now, because I don't want to get sued. So there we go.
All right, awesome. I'm just curious. So this is going to be made into like a live action animation then?
So the Runts right now it's a graphic novel or a comic book. Okay. Yeah. And then we are working on the short film for the Runts now. So that's it. And then it will be out late this year or maybe early next year. We're still figuring out a little bit about the legal aspects of it. Yeah. But it will be published. I will lay it down maybe sometime later this year, because I just want to make sure that I don't speak something that could do something to that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit, but so is it going to be live action, as in is it going to be animated? Is it going to look like this, or is it going to be real people, a real cast, actors, actresses, that kind of thing?
Oh, it's just 2D animation.
2D animation. Okay.
2D animation. Yes. 2D animation.
Yeah. So is that going to be all like hand drawn or 2D? So you're going to use like a mixture of 3D and hand drawn over the top? How are you going to do that?
Right. So for now, our pipeline is the classic one. So we block it out. We block out the 3D environment. Okay. And then we move around the camera. We go with multiple programs like After Effects, Photoshop. Um, what else? Premiere. So we're doing the like traditional 2D animation, hand drawn in Photoshop to gather the movement. We're also using DAZ 3D for for scale and maneuver of the animation. It's quite dude. When we under when you started undertaking this project, I have like a huge respects for 2D animation and comic book artists. It's so difficult, really hard.
Yeah, I remember you saying at the very beginning you're actually interested in the classical like Japanese animes and things like that, right?
Yes.
And oh man, there's so much like handwork and effort that went into some of those animation, like old animations. Oh, super crazy. Yeah, I remember like some of the kind of mechanical sequences of say Evangelion or Evangelion, how we pronounce it.
Yeah.
Some of those I still remember to this day.
Yeah, even what's Pat Labor? Pat Labor, have you seen that? Even Ghost in the Shell, the Ghost in the Shell, the first one.
Yeah.
That's crazy good.
Yeah.
And it's an ambitious project, but I feel like it's nice because I always say to my friends when we started this the Runts, right? Basically, we just want to finish this comic book, and hopefully, it would be nice that it could transcend the test of time. But if not, I think it will be a beautiful story from our personal lives to look back on. Like a bunch of nobodies made a comic book and the world read it. I think I'm cool with that. But yeah, I just want to really finish this stuff. It's yeah, quite difficult, but I like the journey of it.
I've really enjoyed looking through these, especially the Runts. I really like it. I like the overall atmosphere and vibe. I'm just curious, is this based on a completely made up place, or is this based on a real world location? Or
right. So the Runts is based in the Philippines. Okay. So we've changed the name of Manila to Maynila. That's the actual that's the Filipino word for it. Okay. But we're thinking of putting an entertainment twist around it. Like for example, once you see like say on The Division, something like that. Okay, if you take a look at it, that's New York. But if you scale it 1-to-1, that's not really New York. There's bits of entertainment twist in it. So I'm nitpicking so that I wouldn't lose the spirit of the Philippines and the aspect of it, what we like about it, and plus I feel like the dense environment of my home country. I just want to put it out there, and hopefully this would be like a good comic book that people would find value in it. So yeah, we're in terms of because I'm mostly invested in creating good environment designs for this one. So we're not really just looking at some Google photos. We're actually on site taking photos, driving around just to find great locations. So yeah.
That must be quite interesting. I know some of these locations, like the inside of bars. I'm sure those photo shoots were quite interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think, but we went there daytime. Just for a disclaimer, daytime.
Hey, look, if you're a daytime drinker, I'm not judging. Whatever you're into.
Yeah, man.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, but I really like it. I mean, for me personally,
do you have like personal projects as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes, I mentioned Grasshopper before. So for me, like you, I also like to go out and shoot photography and all that kind of stuff and travel. But for me personally, it was about exploring new ways of doing things. So my entire kind of personal work became about exploring Grasshopper and Fusion and trying to come up with ways to create forms and designs I just wasn't able to do previously. And that was like the main interest before GFD North, of course. And then I've more time. But like I was saying before, I really like this because as a location, I don't feel like the Philippines is covered a lot in entertainment. It's not a location I often see. I mean, for me personally, maybe you know more comics and IPs are based there. But for me personally, it's not a location that I've seen a lot of. So yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. And the environments.
Also, oh, thanks. And also, I noticed that maybe it's just me, but I noticed that when I look at manga, right? The Japanese comic book manga, um, they're heavily invested in environments. Okay, whereas in Western comic books, I noticed that most people they draw like characters, and they kind of forego the concept of drawing environments and whatnot. But I think to me, environment is part of your character as well. So here, I'm mostly invested in environments, or because I think um, that's a different facet of looking at things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea that the world and the environment that the character is in gets just as much as importance as the character.
Yeah. Mm.
That the environment has, story and character as well. I think is actually. In fact, I can even see it in this. There's a lot of, just a lot of like effort that's gone into just like the logos and like the trash and just all the life and stuff into the environment, like all the cables and stuff. There's like tons of like effort just put into the environment, which I always like to see. Just blow this film. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it big time.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure the people who are obviously fans of the comic as well love this stuff. Love the amount of detail.
I will send you one once it's out.
Oh, for sure. Oh, definitely, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious, actually, while we're here as well, just going back to those early influences, like, what are the other kind of like comic influences, whether like new like stuff that you've into recently, or maybe like back in the day, like, who are some of your favorite kind of comic book artists then, or influences for your style, or anything like that? I mean, do you have any, or is it changing?
Right. So to be honest, my first comic book influence would be because my mom used to work in the bank, right? And there's, believe it or not, man, their security guard there is a very good draftsman. He's very good. And that's the first time I saw like great comic book art. I didn't know comics back then, and then after he sketched something on their on the notebook there, my dad started buying me comics, and that's when I was introduced to Jim Lee. Of course, we know it, Jim Lee, and then this one's a Filipino comic book artist, Laniel Francis Yu. He's very good. He has done like the run for Secret Invasion. He's prominent in Marvel, and that time I was just looking at these two artists and trying to somehow imitate their work. But later, when I started doing concept art, that's when I have this brand new appreciation of the old masters, like say Katsuro Otomo. Okay, very huge influence on my work. Inoue Takehiko, the one who drawn Slam Dunk, and then of course John Paul Leon. He's one of the concept artists for Batman Begins, although he did it on paper. He's very good very good comic book artist. In fact, I learned a lot about contrast in his work. He's like when we look at Craig Mullin's painting, right?
Yeah.
He's very good in contrast. John Paul Leon is similar there. So these are.
I'll check him out. It's actually a name I'm not quite familiar with. So I'll check him out, John Paul Leon.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. So those people are my influence. And then I tend to study mostly Japanese animation, again, movies like say Mamoru Oshii, Michael Arias, Tekken Concrete.
Oh yeah.
That one, and of course Makoto Shinkai. I think there's something to be said about it, but I believe there's also great Western animation that has been going. It's really very different to compare, but mostly my influences came in late when I started really diving in the field of concept art. Do you have like influences as well? Why you're say you're exploring these various programs like Grasshopper, and Fusion?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to go back into comics, I remember when I was studying illustration and animation at university. I had really, really wide tastes, and digital art was kind of in the background. It was more into like graffiti and all this other stuff. But one of the kind of animations that always stuck in my head was an animation called Waltz with Bashir. I don't know if you've seen it.
Hold on a second. I think I know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's just that actually the style. In fact, this keyframe we got up at the minute with like the heavy blacks. It reminded me of Waltz with Bashir, and it's done in a bit. In fact, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's
dude, I know this.
Yeah,
yes, I know this.
Very old.
I know this.
It's very old now, but I remember watching that back in the day, and oh man, that really stuck with me as well. And I had other influences at the time. Obviously, like illustration influences. The name is escaping me now, but there's an absolutely incredible Israeli illustrator with a really nice line art style. I'm trying to think of his name. It'll probably come back to me at the end. But anyway,
right,
yeah. So similar, like actually very similar taste. So like a lot of different kind of comic books. But I was really into just line work in general when I was younger, and a lot of influences. But ironically, when I was a teenager, I didn't actually get into Japanese anime because I couldn't connect with the style. My friends were watching Cowboy Bebop, Evangelion, all these like different things. So I had seen it, but personally, there's some stuff I don't know. There's something about the style of it when I was younger that it didn't quite click for me personally.
Man, like I'm with you. Like I'm not into like the Japanese stylized anime. You know, I'm more into the like the realistic side, like the Mamoru Oshii, Paprika, Millennium Art actress, Akira, but not into those like too kawaii, you know, the really huge eyes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can't.
That's it. You've actually hit it around the head. That's kind of exactly kind of put me off when I was younger. It was the style. But then when you get older, I feel like you can appreciate it because it's just got such, like you were saying before, such different designs in them that it's a completely different like perspective and lens of looking at like animation 2D. I actually, now I'm older, I think I probably like it more, to be honest, purely just because the designs really are that different. But yeah, there's been, just so many like influences like that just throughout my career, and it just keeps changing. I keep finding out new awesome artists like week after week. It seems to like some new guy who's incredibly skilled at finding an art station or whatever, and it seems to keep on changing. But anyway, yeah, I think we're coming up to about an hour. So
all right,
before we wrap up, I just want to. Is there any like parting words you have to like anybody breaking in, or is this like any kind of like final words you want to say, or?
No, I think what else can I say? But dude, I mean, this has been really entertaining. Also, listening from your thoughts, I think it's just enriching the conversation, and it's nice also to have that perspective wherein you've mentioned before about portfolio, some things that could be improved, like say when you're handling new tools. Also, I feel like it's nice to have conversations with creatives. So I'm looking forward to GFD North and our presentation there. I know there's a lot of excellent artists out there that will share the technique. So to whoever it is that's going to attend there, I'll be sharing a program that's designated for portfolio building, because me and Ryan were talking about it, and I think it could be helpful, especially for students who's going to prepare their portfolio, or maybe you're just there to have some insights about what could be I think what could be effective when you're building your body of work. These are some stuff that I've learned through my art directors and also my short stint in being part of the hiring team when we're ramping up our team for concept art. So yep, really looking forward to that, and that's it.
Yeah, that's great. So there you go for the students that are attending. Well, even if you've been established, I'm sure there's definitely a lot of tips and things you can pick up. So you can come hear it from Raymond. 10 years experience. And also as well, just if you are interested in taking a mentorship with Raymond, you can go over to his website and you can see all the details here. So a 10 to 12 week workshop, and you can go over, there's email address, you can contact him if you are interested in learning from Raymond. And there's also examples of his past students' work, and some of it's so strong, so pro-looking, awesome. And so that's it. So again, if you do want to come down and listen to Raymond give a presentation, just go back to the homepage. You can scroll down. It is this August on the Sunday the 7th. So go to GFD North, scroll down, you can get all the links here, and I'll also put them in the notes in the video afterwards. But that about wraps it up. In fact, I do have one last question. I have one last question to ask you, Raymond.
Yeah, man.
And it
Go
would
ahead.
be, if you could pick one dish to eat for the rest of your life, what would that be and why?
You know what? Hold on. That's a tough question. Right. So you might not know this. This is a local dish from the Philippines. This is called bangus. It's a fried milk fish. It's like a fish, you know. And I love fish, and it's marinated with garlic and vinegar.
That doesn't sound too bad. Bangus.
Yeah.
Bangus.
Yeah. It's Bangus. Bangus. That's it.
Bangus.
Right. So, but fried milk fish. That's it.
That sounds too bad. Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, actually, because now you kind of got me in the mood. When I was lucky enough to actually study in Singapore at FZD, and while I was there, I tried something called lor mee, and obviously being English, it's like fried fish. I had fried fish lor mee, so it was fried fish in a really kind of thick sauce with really thick noodles. It was so nice, and I used to get that. It's really, really nice. So
that'll be the one that you could eat for every day.
Oh, actually, I don't know. Every day, probably a curry, right? Because because if you can change the ingredients, like how many types of curry are there? You can have all different kinds. You can have like spinach curry. You can have like ones with cheese. So I'd probably cheat and say curry as long as I can change the ingredients. Anyway,
so there you go, fellas. Do you hear that? Brian is cheating in the answer that he gave us. Okay, but anyway, this one's really fun, man.
Yeah, great. All right, great to everyone, Raymond. All right, yeah, thanks everyone for checking us out. Go to GFD North to get all the links. I've been Ryan Woodhouse. Thank you. Goodbye.
See you, everyone.